I am browsing to makingcomputergames.com session 2. From this website, I'm downloading the game created by Serafina and which we uploaded to the website. I'm right-clicking on it and I'm saving it on my pen drive in a folder which I called session 2. From the same page, I am also downloading the can image which I will be using to update the game. I'm right-clicking on the can image, choosing save image and saving it in the same folder. I've opened up the game in Scratch, and before implementing the can, I can actually open up sprites and see how they are communicating with each other. I've opened up the fish sprite and I can see that there is a block of code which is executed when the green flag is clicked. Initially, the fish is placed in a random place on the screen, and then there is a forever block. In the forever block, it's checking if the fish is touching the shark, and if it is touching the shark, after playing the pop sound, it is actually broadcasting a message hit by shark. This message, if I go to the shark, if I move on to the shark sprite, the message is handled with when I receive hit by shark block. So in this case, when I receive hit by shark, I am changing the score by 1 and animating the shark's image so that it appears to open its mouth and close it. Now the objective of today's session was to add a can which will drop from the top of the sea, and if the can actually hits the shark, then the shark will lose a life. So I'll start off by creating this can sprite and moving it to the top of the screen and then animating it so that it's as if it's dropping from the top of the sea to the bottom. To import the can sprites, I'm choosing a new sprite from file. I'm browsing to the folder where I downloaded the image earlier, and I'm double clicking on the image. Initially it's imported as sprite 1, I'm changing that to can, so I'm clicking on sprite 1, changing the name to can. Now when I start the game, I want the can to go somewhere on the top of the screen, so I'm choosing the when green flag is clicked block. I'm switching to the motion, using a go to XY. Now I want the can to go to the top of the screen, so I'm just moving it there so that I can see the coordinates. I am seeing that the Y coordinate should be something like 180, but X I want it to be random because I want the can to appear somewhere along the X coordinate but not always in the same place. So I'm moving to the operators, I'm choosing a pick random block, and the random block I'm choosing from minus $200. I'm moving it to the right hand side now, checking the value there. That's about 220, so up to 220. I'm switching this pick random block and moving it in the X component. So when I start the game, I want the can to go to the top of the screen in a position somewhere here, so that's random, but at the top because I've chosen the Y-axis to be 180. I want to simulate the can as going down. So I'm adding a forever loop, and I want the can to go down a bit fast, so I'm using a step of 10. So I'm going to motion, and I'm putting change y by 10. Now, since I want the can to go down, I'm checking the y coordinates of the can at the top of the screen, which is 1, 3, 2, and then further down. As you can see, further down it is minus 30, so the y coordinate is being decreased. So when I'm using change y, I'm doing change y by minus 10, because I want the y to be decreased. And now I can test it. As you can see, when I click on the green flag, the can is going down. However, when it reaches the bottom of the screen, it simply stays there. I'm going to change my code so that when it hits the bottom of the screen, the can goes again up to the top of the screen and falls again. I can use the same code I used earlier, so I'm just right-clicking on it, clicking on duplicate. When I duplicate it, it's going to copy the whole block. I don't need the forever block now, so I'm deleting that. And I'm going to add now an if block to test, to check whether I am at the bottom of the screen or not. So in the if block, I check the y coordinates. When it's at the bottom of the screen, the y coordinates of the can is minus 189. So I'm saying if I'm using an if and a less than block. So if the y position of the can is less than minus 189, you have to watch out here for the minuses and the pluses, right? In this case it's minus 189. If by mistake I had written 189, not minus 189, the can would actually stop somewhere up here. So if it's less than minus 189, I want it to go to a random position again. This if block I'm going to put just after the change y by minus 10, so that it's executed every time. Now I can test it again. Okay, it's not working. Reason it's not working is that the can at the bottom of the screen is reaching minus 189, and I said it should be less than minus 189. So I'm changing a bit the value so that it's less than 180, and trying it again. And now it's working fine. However, when the can is hitting the shark, nothing is happening. To simulate the can hitting the shark, I am going to use another if block. From the sensing blocks, I'm choosing the touching. So I'm saying if touching shark. In this case, if it is touching the shark, I want to send a message. The message name will be a new one, and I'm going to say can hit shark. Once the can hits the shark, I want the can to just disappear and go back to the top of the screen. So I'm going to copy the go to XY block which we did earlier. When I copy it, it saves me the time to actually rewrite the pick random code. I'm adding this block again in the forever loop. So if I run this again, when the can hits the shark, it's disappearing and starting all over again, and it's also broadcasting can hit shark. Before I switch to the shark, I want to now use a lives counter. Basically, to make our game better, I'm going to give the shark initially just 3 lives. Whenever a can hits the shark, I will reduce the amount of lives by 1. To do that, we need to create a variable. A variable is like a box which you can store stuff in. In our case, we're going to store the number of lives available. So I'm switching to the variable section. I'm clicking on a make a variable, and I'm going to call my variable lives. I want the number of lives to initially be 3, so I'm switching to the stage area. I'm adding when green flag is clicked, so this is executed when we start the game. And when we start the game, I want the lives to be set to 3, so set lives to 3. Now, when the can hits the shark, I want the lives to be reduced by 1. So I'm going to the shark. I'm adding a new block. When I receive can hit shark, I want the variable to be reduced by 1. So change lives by, since we want to reduce the number of lives, I'm changing it by -1. So I start the game again, and when the can actually hits the shark, I can see the number of lives being reduced. Now at this point, the number of lives will simply go into negative, because I did not do any conditions to end the game when the number of lives is 0. But we'll fix that in another session. We currently have a bug in our program. When we start our game, the score is always increasing and it's never going back to 0. When I created the shark, I had created a variable called score. However, the score was only created for the shark sprite and not for other sprites as well. So I am deleting this variable and I'm recreating it for all sprites. This will allow me to change its value to 0 when we start the game. So I'm switching to this stage, and similar to what I did before with the lives, I am adding a block so that the score is set to 0 when we start the game. Thank you for watching this video. If you have any questions, you can post them to the discussion area of the makingcomputergames.com website, and I will try to answer them as soon as possible. To post to the discussion area, you need to log in and then click on the new topic icon. Please upload any games you make to the students area of the site. Simply go to the students area of the site, locate your area, and click on it. I encourage you to write about the games and the updates that you make to the game in the journal section of the website by clicking on New Post. The games can be uploaded in the home area by clicking on Add File. Goodbye and see you next week.